Hello, Mech fans. This is Duncan Fisher. Hold on firmly to your mana potions, fireballs, and familiars, because you are tuning in to your regularly scheduled episode of the First Circuit Podcast.
Hello and welcome everyone to the First Circuit Podcast episode 114. Today we've got our usual hosts, Spider,
Blarg,
Old Bob,
Hello.
and myself, Andrew. Today we also feature some guest hosts. Please introduce yourself, Birdthing and Andrew.
Hi, it's Birdthing. I'm a MechWarrior Legends community manager, and I run MechWarrior Legends PR.
yes, hello, I'm Andrew of Clan Wolf Gamma Galaxy. I'm the leading sound designer of MechWarrior Legends creatively. Right now, my work consists more actually of project coordination. I coordinate asset creation, releases, and all that kind of stuff.
Cool, so we're doing a dev interview with the manager and PR. It kinda sounds like we're doing the PGI thing here.
Yeah, but we actually
Anyway.
have devs though, right? We have devs in our dev interview.
We have professionals in our interview.
Okay.
Professionals.
Alright, so as you may guess, instead of doing the usual boring MechWarrior news, we're gonna focus on the much more exciting guests we have here today. We're gonna talk about MechWarrior Legends as we've teased last episode. And yeah, Birdthing and Andrew, we are super happy to have you on board today. Thank you for coming.
Thank you
And
for having me.
Excited to be here.
before we dive too hard into this, do you guys have a really quick summary of what MechWarrior Legends is for people who've never heard about it?
Yeah, I think I can actually summarize this fairly quickly. MechWarrior Legends is a combined arms game. Think of it as a hybrid between Counter-Strike and Battlefield, with a heavy emphasis on vehicular combat. Although, to be quite honest, that is actually only part of what MechWarrior Legends is, because this is the, let's say, our most played game mode. We also have a Solaris game mode, in which we actually have sound samples of the original Duncan Fisher.
Ooh.
Ooh.
And they are unique to MWLL as well.
Ooh.
Did you actually get them from Duncan Fisher or the originals?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay.
They
cool.
are from the original voice actor, yes.
From George Ledoux.
Yeah,
Awesome.
the same guy who voiced our intro to the First Circuit podcast.
Mhm.
Just gonna be bragging a bit there. Okay, let's go kind of back. So yeah, Andrew, you're kind of the sound designer, and Birdthing, you're kind of the community manager. What do you do in your free time? Well, other way around. What do you do in the time you don't work for free?
Well, in my case, I work in kind of like a mix. I do some IT, I do some physical labor in a warehouse, but that's like my paid job. Otherwise, it's like a ton of family stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, myself, I have a job in the customer service industry. Let's just leave it at that.
Okay. So, are either of you in any way involved with the video games industry beyond MechWarrior Legends?
Well, myself, I was involved in Commander Omnitech way back in like 2011. I also tried to do a bit of PR. I also helped make a few models here and there, but that was like my earliest introduction to video game modding. And that's basically about it for me, actually. Yeah.
Previously, I have actually worked on a project in a Kerbal Space Program, one of the bigger mods there, the B9 Aerospace. I was involved in that, and actually, as official commercial project, I'm working with one of the founders, Kamikaze, on this project.
What'd you do for Kerbal Space program?
B9 Aerospace.
Oh, okay. Okay. Cool.
I'll be completely honest, all I know about that game is that you crash your missiles, and that's about it.
That's part of it, yes.
I have a friend that just adores that game, and he'll be excited to actually hear this.
What experience do you guys have with the Crytek engine, with the Crysis games?
I haven't really done I haven't really played with Crisis before until Mech Living Legends. It's kind of like a new thing for me, but I just kind of jumped into Mech Living Legends, just knowing that Crisis is kind of like a meme, as we all know, can it run Crisis? But that was about it for me when I jumped into Mech Living Legends. Before that, I had never really touched Crisis related stuff before.
Yes, before I jumped onto this project, I had zero to do with Crisis modding of any kind. As of now, of course, I'm deeply involved with everything in the Fmod sound system, because that's basically my jam now. That's what I worked myself into. And of course, also config edits, necessary config edits, and some other black magic stuff that nobody else touches anymore.
I feel like black magic is a really good description of Crisis modding in general.
Yes, it is.
Okay, now for my by far favorite question. How did you guys get involved with the BattleTech franchise? And what past games did you play?
So my first experience with the BattleTech franchise was when I was like 6 or 7 years old. I played Mech Commander Gold. It came in like a package with, I think, 2 other games. One of them was like Sid Meier's Civ 2 or Civ 3, whatever it was. And so Mech Commander Gold was my first experience. And after that, it went into kind of like an obsession with BattleTech, really, for a little while, because I was still a kid and I thought that was like the coolest thing, mechs fighting and shit like that. And it kind of evolved into me going into playing MechWarrior 3, MechWarrior 4, Mech Commander 2, and its mods, helping with that. And then I just gradually got into MechWarrior Living Legends through that. And actually, along the way, I did like I think about 3 years and still going, actually maybe even 4 years and still going, of working on the Sarna wiki. And I've been I still work on that, and still also on the Mech Living Legends wiki as well.
I have a question for the Sarna wiki. Like, what do you do for it?
In my case, I do a lot of like if I see anything, I'm just like casually browsing something, and I just see like spelling, grammar error.
Okay.
I just try to fix that, or like if I see some kind of information that's making like it's inconsistent with something else, I might mark that. Or now especially, I actually try to maintain like the MechWarrior Living Legends article. I used to do a project with somebody else on maintaining the Mech Commander 2 and its mods articles. I kind of died though, so there's still that thing's kind of like a work in progress and in development hell, really. And sometimes also I do update the lore related stuff too if I can.
Because like I'm a lore freakazoid and I love looking just browsing through the lore of like kind of like Sarna, and it's just fantastic.
Yeah, it's really nice. Like sometimes, at least when I had more free time, I would actually just sit and read through this stuff a lot, and of course edit it.
When you kind of want to figure out how many starships were in the Terran space defense system during the Star League, and then you go into a deep dive.
Yeah,
the
deep hole.
Right, Andrew, what about you?
Once upon a time, as a wee lad, I was in the comic book store and decided I wanted to read something science fiction that I didn't know yet. So I was browsing, and I came across the cover of Decision at Thunder Rift, and that's my entry point to the franchise. But I wasn't even aware that there was a board game and anything else. Any other media. For me, it was my jumping on point was the novels.
Yeah, I'm with you on the boat. I learned about the video game about 12 years after I first heard about the franchise.
Yeah. And then I saw, wow, there is MechWarrior 3. That is something. Wait, I read those novels. I got to play this game.
And is it just MechWarrior 3 that you touched on for the video games?
No. Of course, I also played MechWarrior 4 and Mech Commander 1 and 2. I played all of those titles as well.
I
Yeah.
I would like to know, because this podcast usually heavily features around the modern games like MechWarrior Online, BattleTech, and MechWarrior 5. Have you guys played those?
Nope. Really, I haven't touched those at all. I mean, I used to play MechWarrior Online back when it first came out, but it felt really kind of got boring, honestly. To be pretty frank, it got boring after about like a year, and so I just dropped out of that.
We understand.
Yeah, in my case, I played MechWarrior Online briefly as well, more as an obligation to my clan actually than actually wanting to do it. And when they dropped the skill system, I said, okay, that's where I'm off the train. Thank you.
All right, then. So, coming from the BattleTech franchise, how did you guys get involved with the project of MechWarrior Living Legends?
So for me, it was it was kind of I think it was a bit of a long story, but I think when I first saw the trailer for Mech Living Legends, that was like really, I thought it was like the coolest thing. It was really flashy. It was really brand new looking. It had like some like energy to it, and I got really excited. Of course, I didn't have a rig that could run that, uh, so had to wait it out for like, I don't know, 4 years or so before I could actually get into anything. But then the development stopped by Wandering Samurai, and I still kept playing because MechWarrior Online just didn't do it for me. And after that, it when development picked up by the other people in the dev team, I wanted to join in and help out as much as I could because I finally had an opportunity to.
Yes, okay. Actually, after MechWarrior 4, because MechWarrior 4 was honestly a disappointment for me, I actually lost a lot of love for I mean, not the single player, but the multiplayer wasn't for me. So I lost a lot of love for the franchise and actually, yeah, fell out of it for quite a while. So yeah, I actually missed the start on Living Legends. I first got aware of it when they actually already had, when Wandering Samurai Studios had released the last patch and everything was on the wind down. And at that point, I only played it very briefly for, I think, a couple of months. Then forgot about it again, and yeah, my interest was reignited when I was aware or came aware about that the development was restarted in 2016. I think I actually caught that sometime early 2017. Yeah, and I first joined then the test team because I was like, okay, if you want something or something to happen to this project, then you need to contribute. And then, as I was sitting actually in the dev server, I was becoming aware that there was sound work that needed doing, and there was nobody to do it pretty much. So yeah, I actually and said, okay, I actually have an affinity for things regarding audio, so I'm offering to take this part up myself. And yeah, that's what I did.
And so you actually had experience doing sounds for games, though, right?
No,
Oh, wow.
actually, and well, only a little bit of experience. I've
Mhm.
been previously modding game sounds for various things like Max Payne 2 or the Max Payne franchise in general, where I was like, this gun sound I don't like, I switch it out with something else. This kind of experience I had, but nothing more than that, really.
Okay.
Okay.
I kind of in my mind, I'm wondering. So, how do you go about the sounds back in the early days? Did you synthesize all of it, or did you go out into your backyard and start clanging together some cutlery?
No, not really. What you're taking is the sounds that already exist somewhere on the interwebs, and you modify stuff to what you need or what you want. That's how you go about it, mostly. Okay. And yeah, let's actually talk a bit about how Living Legends actually, how it started all out.
Yes.
Sometime in 2016, there were our two founders, Kamikaze and two nice guys known to the internet as Kamikaze and Criminal, who were also heavily into the franchise of MechWarrior. They played 2, 3, and 4. Criminal was more into 3. Kamikaze was more into 4. I'm with Criminal there. I think 3 is on the better side. But they also were heavily into playing Battlefield 2. They liked the whole combined arms aspect of the game, and one day, Criminal went to his brother and said, "Well, there has been such a hole for the MechWarrior franchise. There hasn't been a game at all in quite some time. Why don't we do something about that and start development up again, or start something in that regard?" And Kamikaze then decided, well, I'm not doing much that's besides modding Neverwinter Nights. So yeah, sure, why not? Let's just do that. And with that ambition, they actually started out. They knew nothing of what they wanted to do. They had actually zero skills on in any way that they needed. So yeah, they all picked this up learning by doing. And they started out. The project of MechWarrior Living Legends actually didn't have its beginning in Crisis or Crisis Wars, where we are now, but Battlefield 2041. That's where they actually started this. There was a community development kit at the time, community development kit for Battlefield 2142. And they dabbled with this for a time, but soon discovered that it was just too limited to actually do what they wanted to do. So they actually then got an invoice from the developers of what's it called right now? Now it slipped my mind.
Crytek.
No, that's later. Crytek, it's not. Enemy Territory Quake Wars.
Yeah, that's right.
They jumped onto the alpha of Enemy Territory Quake Wars because they were invited there. The developers of that game said, port all your assets over and do this in our game engine. But the dev tools they needed never surfaced really. So they started looking elsewhere again. And one of the programmers they picked up on the way suggested, his name was Effie, I think, as I remember, he suggested to them that they actually should look at Crytek and Crysis because they were doing exciting stuff at the time. So that's where they went. They actually, for a time being, before the Crysis 2 engine SDK kit was available, they actually, for a time, worked still in the Crysis 1 engine in Far Cry basically. But that didn't actually take too long a time for the Crysis then dev kit then to come out, and this is where development then really started for them, you could say, where they picked up a sizable team to get the ball for development really rolling.
I just
Then
have two questions
yeah.
actually.
Sure.
One is, how many people actually work on the project?
At the time, I cannot really tell you, but at that point the team was really fairly small still. I mean, you can see the size the team has grown in our credits. It was actually, at the end of development, it was a pretty sizable team that worked on MechWarrior Living Legends. So it was, for all intents and purposes, a real development team, personnel-wise.
So, plus my other question is, how was it received at first? MechWarrior Living Legends, like, how was it received by the community and plus everyone else? when you first developed
Um,
it, and then even now?
yeah, at first I say it actually got a bit of ridicule at first because they were making a mech game, but they had no mechs to show. All they had, because it was Crisis Native, was battle armor, aerospace, and tanks. And at that point, they also reached out to MechTech, for example, and other places for promotional purposes, and basically asked if they could help them promote this, and MechTech rejected, and the other places rejected as well, because they were thinking these are wannabes. They're actually not going to get this done. And well, but that's, as we all know, that's not how the story went. They actually persisted, and they got later than a really talented coder on board who made the hybrid system that we are using possible. Funny stuff, the first promotional bit that they put out that actually showed mechs, that fake news, as you would say today.
Yeah.
The legs on this on these Pumas, that it was, I think it was called Pumas on Patrol. On the legs on these Pumas, they had animations, but actually the Pumas were pulled by invisible wheels.
Oh God.
There was no real legs at the point. If you're watching that video, you will see there is no bobbing of any kind. So yeah, that was completely fake at that point, and it was also actually pretty late, and it's when they actually had already promised to release this. So they missed their release date by quite a long time. They
Jeez.
initially wanted to put this out in 2008. You can still see this in our, we're still keeping this around because it's kind of a funny in-joke. In our screen, in our start screen, you will see the 2008 there, and that it will be painted over by a 9, because that's how long the delay took to actually make all this happen. Yeah, because shortly after the release date, they actually picked up a talented programmer by the name of Toth, who made the whole hybridization system that our mechs depend on possible. Because you must understand, the mechs that we are using are they're partly a character. The lower half is an oversized character, basically like a Crisis nanosuit. And the tank, and the top is a tank turret. And to make this work, that was actually quite the daunting prospect. Especially, you must see, we do not have access, and they also didn't have access to all the source code. What they could look at was very, very limited. So it's basically like coding blindfolded. That they made this work at all is a small wonder.
Jeez.
Yes, it's for me, just to ramble a bit to give more context on this, at least a little bit, is that you use very different game engines for different types of games. If you have the game engine for Skyrim, you can retrofit it to make it an RTS, but that's going to take a ridiculous amount of work. It's sometimes much easier to start from scratch and whatnot, and that's why in the early story of MechWarrior Living Legends, they're jumping from engine to engine to engine, because we're talking back in 2007, 2008, 2009 type of deal.
Exactly.
And back then, you couldn't just get the Unreal Engine by Epic. There's just there's a lot less engines back then, available for free. There's not.
That is actually, at that point, is nearly unavailable free engines.
There's not even like Unity. Unity's
Yeah.
after this, isn't it?
Yeah, this is free engine and free engine support. That's a very recent thing still by comparison. No, when they started out, that was all very fresh and very unavailable.
It was like
Yeah.
Wild West.
I remember the excitement. I remember the excitement when CryEngine got, I think CryEngine 3 was it, and when that one got released for free. That was insane. For someone who just wanted to play around with it for a while, CryEngine was insane back in the day.
Yeah, and the issue we've always sort of had with Battletech MechWarrior Online is that it's a very different beast from the majority of other games out there. With your typical first-person shooter, you can sort of get away with your character just being a floating box with a camera on the top with a gun, and that's all you need to do, so to speak. And that's indeed somewhat what you have in Crisis. And um, in fact, that's the reason they went for Crisis. It was built to be, it was built for big open worlds. It was built for man on the ground, but also vehicles and aircraft, which is quite close to what MechWarrior Living Legends wanted. However, we are still talking about trying to add mechs into the thing, and Crisis was made primarily to look pretty. like
Yes.
Crisis was very good at rendering those fancy jungles and all this, that, and the other. But when it comes to the vehicle physics, people often said, I think with Crisis, it had like shopping trolley physics, even with the vehicles.
Yes,
And
cry physics are very suspect. That's that's there is a one very funny dev blooper out there where in some test session we are actually crashing a plane into a tank and it basically flies for 200 meters.
yeah. As ever
And
with with games, it's all about trying to simulate the stuff rather than being a proper recreation. So you can, if you make all the physics based around on the ground foot action, you can make sure that everything is the biggest thing you're going to happen with infantry versus infantry is a grenade going off. But when you get to like aircraft smashing into infantry, into vehicles, into mechs, the models that you need to incorporate the scale radically changes. And I think this is all part at least of the one thing at least to bring up with you, Andrew. I'm just curious at least is of course Crytek and Crysis. They were not initially giving out their engines very often, and I think they're based in Germany. Was MechWarrior Living Legends? Where did the original devs come from? Is this somewhat of a German project to start with?
no. Kamikaze and Criminal are from the United States. So
All right.
it's not. It wasn't a German project by any means.
Yeah. All right.
No,
I just thought with
I
your
mean,
accent and with Crytek, it's
yeah, I mean, they eventually went to Crytek. I mean, this is part of the story. I'm of course not done yet with the story, but yeah, they were actually then later working for Crytek. Okay, yeah, as I said, the big breakthrough was, of course, to get the mechs actually working, and that is when they actually started to garner the respect and also the hype for this game. Before that, it was muted.
it was a mech game without the mechs.
Yeah, exactly. Or with faked mechs. Yeah, and but then they had them in, and that's also when then more mechs started piling in, because when they had the system in place, it could be done, of course, much quicker, and then the Warhammer showed up and the catapult showed up, and and all the mechs that they initially released then were made available. So after the release, then they kept iterating and patching, and as I said, Criminal and Kamikaze, they actually, a lot of people actually made it into the games industry, and so also did Criminal and Kamikaze. Kamikaze first went to BioWare as a tester, and later signed on onto Crytek. I don't know if Criminal had something in between Crytek and, but they both ended up at Crytek in the end and worked for that company. And that has a lot to do of how then the actual shutdown of the development came to be. When they mostly left, because of course they worked for Crytek, so they didn't have so much time. The actually project overall direction fell to somebody else, who was called King Lear. He took over the direction of the project, And under his lead, the development was then shut down when the non-commercial license, actually, yeah, the criminal and Kamikaze managed to get a non-commercial license from from Microsoft to actually do MechWarrior Living Legends. But this, as soon as PGI acquired the rights, yeah, this is when there was put a stop to this. You talked about this in your stream a bit, and what was missing in that was that, as I said, that they both worked for Crytek, and you can see how that gets awkward when the when the people that are working for are working for the company that develops the engines of a customer has a free product on the market that yeah is in the same segment and is yeah made still at thunder.
Well, at least the podcast, we should just cover that in more detail, the whole
Yeah.
interactions with PGI, because that was quite a long stream on last year's channel, so it's quite a lot to catch up on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does somewhat. A lot of it is behind the scenes, and it's not like there's any official documents or whatnot. But it seems like, Russ said he had a talk to the MechWarrior Living Legends people, and they happened to cut back a lot on development. And as far as we can guess, at least, there was no official cease and desist or anything like that. But PGI are yeah.
As Kamikaze himself would be saying, that never happened, that they shut down development. And since they were working for Crytek and didn't want to lose their job over something like this, so over getting sued from their own customers, they decided to shut this down. There was a compromise that that Living Legends was allowed to put out one last patch, which was the 071 patch.
Yep.
And that is then where the development was officially stopped from Wandering Samurai Studios.
Yeah, so the original developers, obviously they had less time to put into it, and then they're actually, the engine is now being used by competitive PGI, and so it made most sense for them to step away from the project. And as far as we know, it was all just sort of talked to behind closed doors. It isn't too fishy, but it's, in the end, it's sad but inevitable, somewhat-ish, that they dropped it. But the great thing with MechWarrior Living Legends was that there was a fan community who were willing to pick up the project afterwards.
Yeah, the thing was about that. This actually, as far as I remember, Kamikaze told me that this happened on some convention, that he talked to or got talked to Russ Bullock, and this is pretty much where this was decided.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's no.
After that.
Yeah.
After that, there was, of course, yeah, people started to lose interest in Living Legends. There was a lot of disappointment, of course, that this promising project shut down. I mean, at its height, it actually had a player base that at points exceeded that of Crisis proper. There were thousands of people playing MechWarrior Living Legends at a point, and yeah, most of that has dwindled away. You have played on our server, so you know what this is like today. Yeah, but a very hardcore still remained. They still remained. They still played the game, and thanks to an event called Chaos March that was played on the weekends. That was yeah, a planetary league. You probably know the format. People go into drops, and two teams clash against. There's a drop commander, and two teams clash to to try to outmaneuver each other and beat each other in a deathmatch style. And there was a planetary league meta game behind this, and this was played rigorously for the entire time between the restarting of the development and the shutdown, for the entire 2 years. So this is basically what sparked the restart of the development. There was someone still, our good man Invictus, who is now our project director. He was an intern at Wandering Samurai Studios, and it's basically the whole balancing of the 071 patch was mostly his work. So he was already heavily involved in that, and thanks to him and others like Serpentis, one of our community managers who has retired as of now, the whole development process got restarted. It started with a lot of work by Serpentis hunting down basically the dev builds. He had to run after multiple people for months to to get all the source files so that the proper development could be restarted. And yeah, this is pretty much how we are ending up at our point, where we have now reached the point where the community dev team has taken then over the process of development.
Cool beans. That's definitely really interesting and surprisingly complicated and long story. Honestly, didn't know it was
Good story though. Good story.
And yeah, we like hearing about that. You were going into the current point in time, so let's maybe continue with some of the questions that we have for your current setup. Something I'm personally interested in, how do you communicate and coordinate and plan and track features and all that kind of stuff? Do you have some kind of ticket system set up? Do you just coordinate over Discord? Do you have a tool or something like that?
We are actually mainly utilizing our dev server on Discord, but we also have a ticket system for issues on a Git bucket or in a Git setup that we are also utilizing to do things proper, where we set up states for where a feature is in, like is this in testing, what is the priority. So yeah, this kind of stuff exists as well. Although, to be quite honest, it's it has started to become a bit more by the pants development that happens over Discord and the actual ticket system. It's not used so much right now.
Granted, that's not really a surprise for a fan game that you all volunteer for. And since you are volunteering, do we still have specific roles, or is it just kind of this needs to be done and whoever does it first does it?
No, you're still signing up people that you're getting people in that want to do specific things or bring specific talents, of course. And not everybody can do everything. Hardest to come by, of course, are coders. That's always a problem, getting people to actually write code.
Not least because it's an old code base at this point.
Oh yes, we are always dealing with lost tech.
Yes, pretty much.
Like Flash.
Oh yes, like Flash.
Oh.
Like really old Flash also.
Oh, you're talking that old. Now I'm kind of curious. Which language are you coding in?
I mean, the main or bad thing. Go.
Oh, okay. Well, it's a mix. Like, there's some that's C++. There is some Flash for like the HUD, especially for the menus, and then there's also Lua for stuff like game modes. So it's kind of all over the place. There's a few different kinds of language.
Fascinating.
Yep. They're still using punch cards, all the old architecture.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
at least you don't have IBM servers running ZOS and coding in COBOL.
Correct. Since the engine is so old, since the engine is so old, we are limited to use quite old software in some cases. Basically, for example, to get track effects onto Tank, you have to use a very old version of Excel. There is an Excel sheet XML, and it won't take anything but this old Excel versions to actually make any changes to it. So thanks to get track effects, I have to fire this up from time to time when we get a new tank asset to actually make that happen.
That's hilarious.
Hmm.
How many people do you have in total working on the project, like on average?
It's about maybe might be about, let's see, we have at least like 3 big active devs, and then we have maybe about 4, 5, 6 people doing stuff on a maybe a bit smaller scale, and then we have like about maybe a few other active artists. So it's about maybe 10 people, like on average, working on this.
And
Yeah, that seems about right.
Yeah.
and for the two of you, how many hours do you put into this project every week?
Well,
Okay, good.
oh, okay. It's for me. I don't like actually do any real development apart from maybe some testing when I have time. But that's like maybe it's kind of like on a when I can basis.
Mm.
But like the actual public relations stuff is and community management stuff. That's also like whenever something happens that needs to be put up, any events that need advertising or anything in the community that needs um, any addressing, then I try to get to it as soon as I can. But on average, it's like probably about maybe an hour a week or so at best.
Oh wow.
Yeah, for me, I'd say it's actually hard to measure in actual weekly hours. It's more development stints really at this point, because mostly the sound setup is, it's done to my, how do I put this? Just right now,
To your satisfaction?
yes, exactly. It's done to my satisfaction mostly. There is not too much missing. There is maybe 1 or 2 nice cosmetic features I would like to have, but I actually need to get a coder on this to get this to be done. And there is more important stuff to deal with right now. So this is on the back burner. But yeah, as I said, I also coordinate stuff. So yeah, there is 1 to 2 to 3 hours per week. That I spent on coordinating, the development process, talking to our artists where stuff is at, but also not in a pace that would be annoying. Let's just say I'm asking for progress like once per week or something like this, not annoying people daily or something like that, because
Daily sprint meeting.
So
9 a.m. flat, and don't you dare be 5 minutes late.
no, that's not going to happen. Yeah.
So you
So,
say you're
but there
you're
were,
coordinating with
but
the
the-
team.
yeah.
What is the focus of development? What are you looking to add to the game?
Mostly new assets. So right now we are adding the final 2 mechs to the chosen lineup that we have. All of this is announced, so I don't have to actually mince words. The Kodiak is coming and the Thunder is coming. Those mechs are worked on right now. But the Kodiak is actually about to go into the alpha build. It's pretty much done. And the Thunder is still a bit further out, but yeah, that's what the next patch will pretty much contain, is the Kodiak and the Thunder. So that's mostly what I'm doing, coordinating with the artists. Where are they at with their stuff? But there have been times at the beginning of the development when I actually put serious hours into this. At the beginning of the time when I felt I really wanted to felt the need to put in features, because there was simply important stuff lacking on the audio side. There was times when I worked weekends and put 12-hour weekends in, or I also had a staycation at one point where I worked 12 hours a day for 3 days straight. That also took place.
Yeah, basically we could see the definitely love in the game that we actually played it, and what you guys put into it. It's wonderful. I just have a question too. Like, how often do you guys do patches and mechs and all that kind of stuff? Is it kind of like what PGI does, like, or used to do, like every month they have a new mech, or is it like whenever you guys get around to it?
No, we can't keep a hard schedule like this. I mean, this is all volunteer work,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's impossible to keep a schedule like that. It's more realistic to say the small patches take from 3 to 4 months, and the bigger patches might actually end up taking from 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
So because that's what we have, nobody on a salary, and everybody needs to volunteer the time, and so that's
Yeah, of
how
course.
it's going. It has to be, just has to be like that.
And I remember, Birdfig, you kind of teased something in our playtime, something you were looking at for potential future patches. Are you willing to talk about that?
If we're talking about like the new battle armor system,
Yes.
that is it's a really huge work in progress, but it's still mostly kind of on the back burner. It's not a very high priority, but it's going to be a lot of work. Like right now, the more important focus, the more immediate focus rather, is getting the new mechs and tanks in. And then after that, shifting focus, the focus will go to the new battle armor system, which will be basically a system where you start out in a Nighthawk PAL suit for both
Oh,
factions,
okay.
both teams.
Nice.
And yeah, and I can't reveal too much because there's a lot of unknowns in this, but you are able to get into a mech with this Nighthawk suit, and you can also choose to buy a battle armor like you would any other asset, any other tank or mech, and you'll have the ability to choose. Ideally, in the end result, the ideal end result is that you'd be able to choose from all 4 classes of battle armor: light, medium, heavy, assault. And I think we might have the kind of battle armor already worked out, but I don't know if I can reveal too much about that. I think it's already been noted that the gnome and the what's it called, the
Phalanx.
the phalanx, that one,
Okay.
those two are already all set, but they still need some work. Like the models are done, the textures are done, I think, as well, but they still need to be put into the game. They still have to make it into the alpha build. They still have yet to get hitboxes and everything else sorted.
That's
Well,
interesting.
actually, we also talked about, or we officially talked about this in our Discord already, about the light BAs that we want to include, the Sylph and the Kage. The Kage is actually already done as a model as well. So yeah, that's also coming.
Yeah, that's interesting. You talked about the Nighthawk. That was the first SLDF battle armor, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. Lore, I love it.
Well, it's a power armor light. It's not
yeah.
a battle armor. It's a precursor. The Nighthawk is Starlink Tech.
Yeah.
So
It was a basics. It was a basis of the battle armor, kind of like when Clan Wolf
correct.
made it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool deal, man. Awesome. I love it.
Yeah, so you have light.
Yeah, all of
medium-
this.
Go ahead.
All of this is on a back burner by necessity, because getting the battle armor stuff to work. There we are back, but we are at Flash again. We really need someone that is able to do action script coding, and finding somebody like that is almost impossible. So it's not only impossible because these people are rare. It's also impossible because, to be honest, it's a terrible job.
Yeah,
It's a really terrible job. If you look at what there's actually in there in the source files, you will be running away screaming as well, because you have files there that is just copy 758 of something, and it's an awful mess.
It's very poorly documented, very minimal documentation, if anything, there. I haven't seen it myself, but from what I've read, it's barely documented.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. You almost, to get this work done, I said this, I wasn't even really joking. You probably have to crowdfund a salary to get anybody to work on this, pretty much, because yeah, it's just that that would be that terrible. Nobody, or pretty much nobody, will want to delve into this. If they
Nightmare.
have to.
Yeah.
It's nightmare fuel, exactly.
I have one other question
Awful.
too. That basically you talked about crowdfunding and all the different types of things. Would you ever consider actually making the game and distributing it, like, $49.99, $29.99, like whatever it is, basically whatever you guys decide? Because I mean, so far, like, I've seen the game and it's actually really good. You guys did an awesome job on it. It was a lot of fun to play, and in the future, with this fan based type thing, would you ever consider selling it? Basically. To have that kind of stuff, and you guys actually get paid for the time and money you guys put into this and the love you guys do.
No,
No?
that has been decided. No, there will never be. This will never be a commercial project. Never.
Okay.
Can't be. There will never be donations. Nothing of the kind. That's not going to happen.
Is that
I'm
got a
assuming
license? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm assuming that kind of goes back to the same thing most fan games have with the licensing issues,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
course,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Of course.
money.
We could,
same thing.
Licensing.
we couldn't do that. That's then we would have the lawyers on our doors really, really quickly, and we
Mhm.
don't want that.
Yeah. But since we're on the topic of kind of licensing, can you talk about your relation to the officially licensed studios? And like, how does Microsoft view the project? Do we have any contact with Microsoft at all? Or
No.
are you doing it kind of under the radar?
No, Microsoft hasn't reached out to us at all, and PGI hasn't reached out to us at all, and I don't think they ever will again, because they made their money on MWO, and they're making the money on MechWarrior 5.
Mhm.
At this point, we are not a threat for them anymore. As I said, look at
They
what's
are done
left
with the
of.
Crisis Engine. Unreal and others are much better suited for
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Look at the community that actually actively plays. It's no, they have no reason to actually go after us ever again. I don't see this ever happening.
Yeah.
Hypothetically, if you had the option to officially license MechWarrior Living Legends, would you be willing to do it?
To be safe with these situations and licensing, they never want to say yes. You want to make it clear, Ian, that it's always,
Yeah, it's
Always
free.
no.
And that's why, if you're trying to dime them with, oh, but what about if, society collapsed? Would you then release it for money?
Yeah, plus you want to have a Harmony Gold coming over.
And then finally a legal suit comes out and it's like, oh, this guy says he wants to end society so that he can release his game. No, that's not what I meant at all.
Oh God.
And no, exactly, because we haven't really discussed this hypothetical at all, and we are not really able to speak for the entire team in this anyway. But I'd say the tendency is probably no, I guess.
For the
Alright,
foreseeable future, yes,
Yeah.
it's a fan project. It's all done just on people's free time. There's no money involved, no donations, nothing like that. And in some ways, we having enough. You have a large enough community as it is. You don't want to put that behind a paywall.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Definitely.
Yeah. But speaking of community, and since we do have Birdfing here, let's real quick touch on marketing, because MechWarrior Living Legends marketing is limited. As far as I know, at least a lot of people don't even know about the game. And for example, the YouTube channel has been apparently dead for 7 years. Do you guys have any plan to expand on your marketing, revitalize the YouTube channel and stuff like that?
If we had some means to consistently, or at least fairly consistently, make media to put onto YouTube, we definitely would. Or I mean, really, I would definitely go for it. But I mean, as it is, my time's been kind of limited, and it's kind of hard to find anybody willing to put in a lot of time to kind of orchestrate putting together like a video of any kind of promotional content like that. It's not really something easy to do, especially because Crisis, the way it's set up, it's kind of difficult to get good recordings that are very clean and crisp. And and then also editing that and putting it all together, that's it's kind of a big process. And I mean, I myself, I don't really have a ton of time, especially now, to do it. If I did have time, I would go for it. But as well, like we had a person or two make videos before, and I mean, they're still around, but of course they also have life stuff to deal with. So if we had that kind of time to do it, yeah, we would.
Would you mind if I take a crack at it?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
if you want to, yeah, we would definitely appreciate that.
As far as
Totally. That's we are kind of depending on pretty much on the outside to get
to make media. I mean, I can only do so much. One person can only do.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask, at least the way the community sort of works, so the biggest thing is just getting people down to play the game, and having certain times where everyone turns up to play. How have things been for like Twitch streamers? Have any people on Twitch taken an interest in the game?
So I've been reaching out to Twitch streamers before. Most usually never get back to me, even if I poke them a few more times. And there have been some, like, I mean, Critical Rocket has streamed or streams MechWarrior Legends pretty consistently. I think it's every other week.
Yeah.
Lars has announced that he's going to be streaming every other week, so there's that. We did get XP Gamers to stream and make a video that got into his mod spotlight library. That was kind of successful. Of course, it also depends on the kind of community that streamer has around them, because some aren't really BattleTech oriented at all, and they just play MechWarrior games kind of like when they feel like it, and their audience joins in and watches. But if it's some kind of streamer that's very MechWarrior oriented, it does sometimes tend to be pretty hard to find a good one. Like, I mean, I've reached out to the Beef, I've reached out to NGNG, but that's not really been an especially successful initiative.
Yeah, basically, I plan to stream every other week with Larch as well too, like on Twitch, and try to promote you guys because it's a lot of fun.
The problem about getting people interested also is that our game is, or our primary game mode is kind of old school. Everybody got so conditioned into wanting RPG light elements that we are just not offering. For example, everything you achieve in the game is through skill alone, and yeah, it's also has kind of a, it's not an easy learning curve.
Fairly steep.
Having success in the game, you will, especially when you're fresh, when you never played a mech game before, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to actually to get any success out of this, not to get stomped by our hardcore veterans that are just there and they will take them apart. And
it also looks like it's over a decade old, probably because it is.
Yeah.
Of course, that's also a problem. There is a lot of people want a lot of shiny graphics. Yeah.
No, the graphics are fine. When I looked at them, they were actually halfway decent. They were good. I like them.
They're functional. It's just obviously if you're comparing it to a modern Battlefield game.
Oh yeah,
exactly. That's of course, and there can be no comparison because we cannot achieve this kind of polish. That's just impossible for us.
Also, going back to the skill part, there are a lot of veterans that can take you apart in a matter of seconds, honestly. But they can also help you learn if you're willing to just take it easy a little bit and actually listen to feedback. Because if you really want to actually, be good at the game, you have to put in some effort to learn it all. And there are people that are willing to help you along the way. If you can you can ask in game, people will help you there. There's a training server, testing server that you can go into and take whatever asset you want and play around with it for as long as you want. And there's the Discord is a great place also. It's another resource where you can get a lot of help for how to do well in the game.
Yeah, and on that subject, when you were head along, I mean, Domkek actually did a very, very good job on introducing you to the game. I think he drifted a bit too much into advanced tactics because he is, of course, a very experienced player. So yeah, so he introduced you right away how to effectively bleed tickets and stuff like that. That's not really necessary knowledge when you're just starting out, I'd say. But yeah, he actually made or did very. It was very well done by him. One thing I think was missing was just actually do not try on the map. Do not try to run around alone. Stay in a team, or even better, look at in your player list and your score list who is doing the best, and try to stay in his shadow and move around with him. That also will help you a lot to not get completely destroyed when you're on the actual battlefield.
Yeah,
so
it's
move with,
kind of like in every game. It's a team game.
Right.
Oh my god, maybe you should stay with the team.
Yes.
I wish this was advice that MechWarrior Online would promote.
Yeah.
Also of note, like if you're gonna move with somebody, definitely shoot at what they're shooting. Even if you guys don't kill it, somebody will eventually kill it. And so you'll get the C bills, the points that will come in for assisting the kill. And honestly, even worrying about making kills all the time in the TC game mode is really not that important. It's more about actually capturing the points, the cap points, bases, factories. Because, for instance, if you take a forward factory, that's a pretty valuable spot, and you can churn out your mechs and tanks all day there. But you have to make sure that somebody can defend it. You have to make sure that somebody can, that it doesn't get taken by the other team. And driving away the enemy team is going to be pretty important, not just outright killing them. Sometimes you'll want to outright kill somebody, but you're going to have to chase them, and that's a great way to get yourself killed in the process.
Yeah.
Except when you're playing Solaris Arena, then you are in a free-for-all killing environment. That's just kill each other as quickly and as effectively as possible.
More or less, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if maybe we're somewhat too deep into the Living Legends tactics right now. That might be something for future episodes.
Oh, definitely.
Just in case you guys might be interested to come back on at some point.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, that's totally fine with me. So get back to the basics.
Yeah, back to the basics. So you guys as the devs, do you actually play the game? Because we've heard a lot of time that devs don't really want to play their own game after developing it. How do you feel about that?
Well, I play kind of sporadically when I have time. I used to play a lot more frequently, but life stuff has been keeping me away from that. Yeah, I play regularly. You'll often see me in a Shadowcat the entire game, sometimes in an Osiris the entire game, sometimes in a Raven the entire game too, because those are just my fun mechs. You can just run around all day and providing assist and jump away too.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, for me, I can say there is definitely some truth to this notion. When you're behind the curtain, some of the magic is a bit lost. That's just how it is. You're working on it, and it's still in the end. You love it as much as you do, but it's still work in the end. But that's not the entire reason for me. For me, not playing as much, or actually, I'm actually playing rarely, is because the play times has regressed a bit, and that it used to be early European evening to late night US, and now it's nighttime European to late night US. So it has become worse for me to actually catch game time. So that has also a lot to do with it.
Yes, us poor Europeans are kind of limited to the weekend.
Yeah, it's basically we have to get back the European players that we lost.
Well, let's get on to that.
Maybe bring a couple more clans along too. That would be really fun for the competitive events that we sometimes have.
Oh, you still have competitive events. Would you mind telling us a bit about that?
Yeah, so we had an event called Chaos March that ran, I think, from what was it, 2013 or so till about.
Personally, I talked about Chaos March and when we talked about the history as well.
Yes,
So
we've heard about
that was
Chaos Match.
mentioned.
But do you have anything that's really still going on competitive-wise?
So we do have occasional 3v3s. That's been a bit on hiatus because the the organizer is taking a break. But we also have Saturday night open work nights. So those are organized organized play. So you have your regular TC game, except everybody's on comms communicating and trying to capture the objective and get their team to win. And that
Yeah, this is actually
typically-
proceeding as we speak.
Yeah, it's going on right now actually. And that's the main one that's been going on. And I think we also have inside, like between a couple of the more active clans in the community, between Star Adder and Clan Jade Falcon, there's also a kind of like a friendly skirmishes. So again, everybody in comms, and you have each team competing with like the organizers choose. You have to get a certain like layout, like you have 3 people per team and they have to fight in specific assets and they have to try to work up their skills, and it's a great way to kind of step out of your comfort zone and try a new asset or a new variant of that asset.
And since we are talking about the progression system, if I recall correctly, the Siebel or credit system is kind of thing from the Crisis multiplayer originally. How specifically did you decide that you wanted to adapt that for MechWarrior Living Legends? Or do we have any insights on how the original team decided that?
Do we have insights on how I guess it seemed obvious because the system was there, and also it meshes really well with the TC game that we actually got with the catch-up mechanics in place. Basically, when you join late and the big boys are playing, and you shoot shoot them with smaller assets, you are able to catch up fairly quickly to the other players to get yourselves into better assets. So yeah, it works really. This Counter-Strike Battlefield hybrid just works really well for the game type that they came up with.
And talking about the game type and the progression system, I recall Birdfing, you wanted to talk about the lack of a mech lab.
Yeah, the lack of a mech lab. There's a kind of it's not a really big reason why, but I mean it is a big reason, but it's kind of complex too. There's it's kind of, first of all, it's a balancing nightmare, to put it simply. Because you're gonna have, like you have hags, you have LRMs, you have ATMs, you have the different kinds of ATMs, you have arrows, you have all these big scary weapons, and trying to balance that for a multiplayer game so that everybody feels like it's working well for them on both ends too. Like, I mean, if you're getting hit by hag, you don't want it to be like something that just instantly takes you out in, like, 2 seconds, or likewise with AC-20s or ultra AC-20s. You don't want to get even if you're in a light mech, you don't want to just lose a limb right away. So you have to find like the right spot for that. If you have a mech lab, everybody's going to be kind of min-maxing your builds. You're going to end up basically with what MechWarrior Online has, where people typically take the most optimal builds, or sometimes you'll have people that take an assault mech and then put like one LBX2 on it and I don't know what else they do with the rest of the tonnage, but I've seen people that do that or just like put tag and narc and that's it. I don't know what's up with that, but
That
yeah.
is blatant not knowing what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me add to my 2 cents as well. The choice the MechLab offers is deceptive. It's actually a two-edged sword. As Bertzing already said, you have choice, but what does the choice end up with in the end? Everybody is going to run around with the most effective build they can get away with, and everybody else is going to copy it. And no matter what you're doing with the MechLab, how much you restrict it, the community will find the metagame cheese. It's inevitable.
Yes.
And for that reason, we decided that there is no reason to bother with this at all. We might as well just have our project director make balanced and fair variants for everybody to play with, and thereby have a much better experience instead of everybody, as I said, taking the meta game super max and everything else is on the wayside.
The usual reason to include MechLab in like a lot of the other games we cover in the franchise is if you're in MechWarrior Online, it takes a while to grind up the mech and grind all the parts, etc., etc. Like you're sticking with a mech for a long time. That's the same for BattleTech by Harebrained Schemes or MechWarrior 5. But MechWarrior Living Legends, you can have a completely different mech. You can have a completely different vehicle every spawn.
Yeah, that's very true.
Exactly. We are thinking as a dev team for the MechLab is excellent for the single player experience, of course. When you can actually do something long time with it, like repair times and all this kind of stuff, when you can take that into account, that not everything is available at all the time, then a MechLab is a gold thing. But for multiplayer, where you can just always build what you want, it's more a detriment than a positive, really.
And there's also, if I could add to that as well, you have the element of aircraft. So if somebody starts maxing out the optimization of an aircraft, like you'll end up having, like dual heavy gauss rifle Shivas like we used to have once in a while, like way back in the 0.7, 0.1 days. That was like a flying Fafnir, and I don't think anybody's going to want to experience that on a
Yeah, true.
Fafnir Land Air MechWarrior.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, at least the big selling point of MechWarrior Living Legends is just simply that it's somewhat trying to bring to life what's described in lore. Combined arms warfare with generally like stock mech loadouts. The thing is, with a lot of the other BattleTech video games, is it's usually done from the perspective of like a mech mercenaries leading your own lance of mechs, and for that, people want to feel empowered by being able to edit their mechs. But in this case, you're actually a soldier or, on the front lines, and you're taking out a bog standard mech. You aren't taking out your own customized mech for a special ops mission like you are in most of the other games.
Yeah, that's a good perspective to have on that as well.
Yeah, because most warfare during that time is actually combined arms. They usually use the infantry and the tanks and the aerospace to soften up the other mech battalions, and then send in the mechs type stuff, or kind of destroy them as much as they can.
And when you're a soldier on the front line, I mean, you're already so lucky enough to be able to choose whatever mech you want. Normally, you'd just sort of be stuck in that Osiris all game long. And I mean, some of us would like it. Some of us are just like, oh, I wanted to be in a big mech, and all I got was this Osiris.
Yeah.
Exactly. In the military, you just get something assigned, and that's what you're going to use. End of story.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think Living Legends is hitting the really nice sweet spot between the power fantasy that BattleTech usually caters to, while still keeping it fairly simple and I guess easy to balance would be the main argument there.
True.
Yeah, it's leans a little into the power fantasy, but it leans into being a big battlefield and a big warfare. And for that, just like the old, I at least remember Battlefield 1942. You were just happy to spawn on the airfield and there would be an airplane there. You didn't have to. You weren't asking for a mech lab or anything else extra on top of that. Just you want to get involved in the battle.
Yes. All right. Moving on, kinda, what work are you guys most proud of? You can go either from personal, what you personally enjoy most, or as a team, what you are most proud of.
Well, I would have 2 points for that, actually. One is personal, one is for the team.
Go for it.
Okay. Yeah, personally, my proudest achievement in this is that I got all the reload and cycle sounds into this game. I thought that was really necessary to actually know when your weapon is ready to fire again, because there was hardly, or well, there was indication. You could see it up top in the weapon manager, but when you are when you're in the middle of the fighting, it's kind of hard to glance up there and see, okay, I can refire my PPC now again.
And it's not even like a bar that fills like in MechWarrior Online. It's
Exactly.
just green or red. You can go or you can't.
Yeah, exactly. So that system, getting that system in place, and there was 2 iterations of it. One that was clumsily done by me. I simply, before I could get a coder on it, I simply attached to the firing sound a delay that was exactly the right time when so when this sound event played the full time, the weapon was ready to fire again.
Hey, I mean, as long as it works, it ain't stupid.
Yeah,
It
but
just for balance reasons. If you have an AC-20 and you want to make its cooldown extra long, it went from bang to bang.
no, the sound was still the same. You just had a long space of silence in between the reload sound or the cycle sound and the actually firing sound.
Ah,
So yeah, that's how it
bang.
worked.
Wait 2
Yeah,
seconds.
exactly.
Clunk,
You,
clunk.
the player wouldn't notice that, this, of course. But well, the system had its limits. But luckily, I actually got a coder onto this, and yeah, we made it a system that actually makes sense. I have actually a lot of control over it as well. There is fuzzy mechanics, for example, for when your autocannon is ready. There is a threshold for that, so that you do not, when you're expanding or getting into the overheat zone, there is you get a warning tone, and when you're cooling down, there is a threshold that you have to go over until the warning tone plays again. If you are not far enough away from the threshold, the warning tone will not be played again.
All right. Yeah, and for the team?
Yeah, as for the team, yeah, we had a crisis, but I don't really remember when that was exactly anymore. Berthing, do you remember when they actually shut down the GameSpy service we were on?
I think that was in 2014, sometime around then.
No. I mean, we were on not that. I mean, not the official GameSpy. We
Oh,
were on
the one that
on
was emulating it.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
one back when that was in, I think, October 2018.
No, wait, that was August. Or I
Or
remember.
August, yeah, it was August, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The server admin of the list service that we are on the GameSpy Alike service that we are on, sent out a notification. I'm going to shut this down. This has been more trouble than it is worth. And yeah, everybody has 1 month to actually find a different solution. And we really had to pull this together super quickly, and the team made that happen. That without delay, that we actually switched from their solution to our really now autonomous solution. We have now our own GameSpy Alike server service, so we're not dependent on anything anymore like that. And yeah, there was no in-between time where the list service was not available. Either we were still on theirs, or we had already switched onto ours. I mean, imagine how terrible it would be for for the community now. Everybody is so pandered by Steam and stuff like that, when you actually would have to connect through IPs because there is no list service. So yeah, we actually managed to get this done in the months. That was really quite the terrible crunch, yeah, but we made it happen. It never was really a problem for the end user.
Speaking of Steam, you said that well, actually, I'm just curious. Can you actually put it on Steam as free as well?
Nope.
Oh,
No,
okay.
we can't.
Okay.
The problem is that the game, of course, identifies itself as Crisis Wars. So,
Oh, okay.
also when you look in the registry, in your file registry, you won't find MechWarrior Living Legends there. You find Crisis Wars instead. So, yeah, this is where we would really get in trouble with EA if we try to put MWLL on Steam, because yeah, it identifies itself as Crisis Wars. And it's also our Crisis Wars install is custom, so it's coded that it leads to ours and network service. So if you want to play it with something else, it actually won't work. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's that unfortunately can't happen, because of course that was we were thinking about this, that we could get a lot more traction if we actually made it onto Steam. But yeah, for that reason, we can't really do it. We don't have really an idea how we could get around that. Maybe not doing it as a crisis. There is no Crisis Wars mod either, so or Crisis Wars demo mod, because this is a demo, not the actually full
Yeah.
version of it. So yeah, it's not a problem I think we can solve. We would like to go in Steam, as I said. I guess we could get a lot of traction simply through people stumbling onto this. There is millions on players of Steam, but yeah, it's not something we can do.
Well, how about
Yeah,
streamers, basically, as far as like us that we're gonna go stream the game? Like, do we put it under MechWarrior? Do we put it under MechWarrior 5? Like, what do we put it under?
There is a MechWarrior Living Legends category
Oh,
on
okay.
on Twitch, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay, cool.
All Bobby asked me the easy questions. Since you were kind of on the topic, I was really interested in the launcher, because I recall last time I played before, like a couple of weeks ago, you actually had to own Crisis and get a CD so you could install the game and install Crisis Wars as a install Living Legends as a mod. How did you guys get around that restriction without really angering Crytek and EA?
Yes, as I already said, we talk. This is leads into this kind of, or basically, this is kind of in reverse order now. The switch to Crisis Wars demo, of course, makes this possible, because that's a standalone installer, and it doesn't cost anybody anything. The demo is freely available for everyone, and yeah, that made this whole install process much easier. And that it's
Um,
no longer dependent on something that you actually need to buy. Of course, helps the game a lot.
mm. Yeah, I was just kind of wondering, because you have your own installer, right? You're not using the
Yes.
Crisis demo installer. And have you integrated the demo, or do you have done a completely custom one? And if you've done a custom one, are you afraid that EA is gonna have issues with that?
The demo is not completely custom. As I said, it points to the network stuff points to our server infrastructure.
Mhm.
That's what's custom about the install of the demo.
And it's also
And
a little bit stripped down, so you have less of like all that overhead from the original demo. So it's a little more of like
True.
a scale, like about bare bones kind of like a.
Mm.
Yes, a lot of the assets that actually are in the demo have been stripped that we have no use for. And no, actually, I don't think we need to worry about this, because this is a demo. It's not a full product. We should be fine with this. Nobody plays the Crisis Wars demo anyway at this point. That's not something that's going to happen.
Is the Crisis Wars demo the multiplayer only demo, or are you talking about the single player demo?
The Crisis Wars is only multiplayer. Crisis Wars is the multiplayer component of
Yes.
Crisis, so yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was just kind of wondering because the only demo I was familiar with was the one for the single player Crisis 1, and I guess I missed that Crisis Wars had its own demo.
Yes.
That's kind of funny. Okay. Going somewhat back on the thing, like bird thing, I don't think you've said yet. What are you most proud of?
Really just making it this far, being in the community manager position, one of the community managers, and doing the PR for this for quite a while now. But it's that's, at least for me on a personal level, it's kind of a nice achievement, I guess. I've done a good amount, contributed a lot for this, done a lot of hired a lot of people on, well, not hired, but onboarded, I guess. A bunch of people helped with that, recruited a bunch of, like one of our biggest contributors to the code is, I got him on board. Well, I helped get him on board, really, to be more specific. But also, most of our artists that we have now, also, I helped get on board. And like Pajama Boy was one of our artists as well, and we actually have a pretty good relationship with him and Wolves, and I'm glad to be kind of like facilitating that.
Yeah, he mentioned in our podcast with him, I think he made the summoner model.
The Anubis, and I think he also might have textured a thing or.
Yeah.
That's true. Actually, yeah, we have a joint project right now. He is making a summoner that, of course, for his project. And this same summoner is going to show up in MechWarrior Living Legend as well. It will be slightly edited because we have, well, in Mech Assault, you do not have torsos or side torsos and different hit locations, so that doesn't really matter. So there will be an edited version of the summoner will at some point from his project will at some point actually go into Living Legends, yeah, as a cross promotion. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
cool. So, is there anything you guys wish you'd done different or earlier or not at all during the development process in the past years?
That's actually that's a tough one.
We asked the tough questions here.
Take your time. Don't need to rush it.
Deep.
Different, yeah, not at all. I mean, no, we couldn't have really prevented that. No, actually, I don't think there is anything like that, because the things that we do regret, there was no way of anticipating this. For example, we had the time when when the PPC was actually dealing heat damage. By accident, some code was activated some strange way, and nobody noticed that, and the PPC started to deal heat damage as if there were plasma cannons, and that actually that was quite the havoc that was caused through that. Yeah,
it got patched out in like a month or not even a month, in like a couple days.
Yeah, it was fixed really quickly. And nobody really could have anticipated this. It just dropped on the heads of the team, and there it was. I mean, we probably it probably could have been caught if testing would have been done better. If it was tested more thoroughly, then this probably wouldn't have happened. So it was just a reminder to actually rigorously test our stuff before we release it. But yeah, it was something that came out of the blue, basically, that nobody thought was going to happen.
Testing, the bane of all development. I can very much relate to that. You write 1 line of code and then 5 lines of test.
Yeah.
So you were kind of touching on some of the mechs and assets you were planning on getting in the future. You've had a really recent addition to your game that's been really well received, the Mechwarrior. Can you talk a bit about the process of getting this fan favorite into MechWarrior Legends?
Yeah, sure, of course. Yeah, first of all, the first thing you do, of course, is that you assign the mech to an artist to model it and to texture it and all of that. And when that is done, it is passed on to our leading developer, who is unfortunately the only one who has the rest of the pipeline down. The modelers can basically use whichever rendering software they want. All they have to produce in the end is an output format that 3ds Max is able to read. We are locked into 3ds Max in this way because the whole export script to get stuff into CryEngine, there is nothing that exists that other than for CryEngine. So it needs to go through 3ds Max, where it ends up in the hands of our good man Invictus, our project leader. He then rigs the whole model and creates the animations that are necessary. There might also be model adjustments at that point. Again, the necessity to actually change arms or other parts of the mech so that planned weapons actually fit and are not oversized for it. So it might be handed back to the modeler, or Invictus makes the changes themselves that are necessary. And then they go back to him, and when this is all done, it ends up in the alpha build and gets internal testing. And when we have collected everything that we want to put out into the next update, it then gets passed on to our PTE, to our pre-testing environment, which is can be closed or either open. Closed for internal testing, and we also now have an open event where people can just participate. We actually encourage that because it's always easier, or oftentimes easier, to catch stuff in open play. So it gets through the paces there, and when that is done, we're closing the PTA again. If necessary, we make adjustments, and when all of that is done, the update gets released.
Cool.
So actual testing, basically. Actual testing. Wow.
Obviously.
I think in some cases we are doing more actual testing than AAA developers.
Yeah.
I
agree.
Also, obviously, your player base is not only free, but also the most thorough test you can ever get. So public testing is a really good way to go.
Yeah.
One thing that I was wondering, what's the relation in the process between doing the actual asset, like modeling animation stuff, and the code you need to do in the background for the asset, like putting the loadouts and stuff like that? Does this happen in parallel, or do we have a specific order and workflow for that?
First you have to put together the actual crisis model assets, all the files that are necessary, and after that the XML creation begins. The actual where the actually values are set up for the mech, what is the tonnage of the mech, what mech leg set is it using, what are the variants. All of that happens in the XML file, and it's also what Invictus does. Nobody else is touching that stuff. That's how it works.
Okay, cool. What kind of tools are you using for that stuff? Like, obviously, CryEngine editor. You've talked about what Invictus is using for the animations. What else do we have? Like your stuff for the sound suit. What tools do you use?
Of course, yeah. Of course, we are using of course, the sandbox, when the mappers are mainly using the sandbox and graphic tools. As for me specifically, I have an audition license, and of course, I'm working with FMOD, with the sound system that's integrated into Crysis. Funny stuff about that is actually I had to work in the beginning. I had to work with a really ancient version of FMOD. It was it's actually so ancient that that when I can that the FMOD team or Firelight Technologies, the creators of FMOD, do not even have that thing archived anymore. So it's that ancient.
Nice.
And it was terrible. It actually produced a lot of errors. It produced a lot of grief for me, a lot of tears, and a lot of smashing my fists on the table.
Oh, jeez.
But thankfully, I actually managed to replace this. I got in contact with Firelight Technologies, and they opened up their archive for me. And I was very lucky. The second to last thing, or the second to last version, they actually had archived of FMOD Designer was still compatible with the version of CryEngine we had. And that version, thankfully, runs way more stable and causes me a lot less grief than, this first version of FMOD that, as I said, Firelight didn't even archive that.
Nice. Do you have any insights what software your artists and modelers are using?
Yes, our modelers are mostly on Blender.
Nice.
And
Nice. Okay.
they're utilizing Blender, and for texture output, they are why is the name slipping right now? Birdsing. Do you remember?
He's kind of
it's on the tip of my tongue. The Substance Painter, right? They're using Substance Painter to texture the assets.
Okay. Yeah. Blender is actually for free, correct?
Yes, Blender is a free suite for modeling.
Cool.
Blender is the kind of tool, once you've learned it, you'll never need anything else.
I gotta learn it first, though. I gotta learn that.
Technically, you can do video editing in Blender. Not that I would recommend you do it. It's technically possible, though.
I just want to use it just to make some like intros and stuff like that, and that's about it. Intros and outros and stuff like that. But yeah.
Actually, I noticed we kind of skipped a bit about the launcher stuff. We didn't really get into that. The incarnation of the launcher that we now have, that is actually able to delta patch, which is a huge accomplishment for us, was created by our developer Star Race. He was the one who actually made that thing finally possible, which is a huge boon to us. If you want to put out the update, everybody just has to click the update button, and and you can simply download it that way. There is no more that you actually have to download an archived version to get yourself up to date. You just click the update button when we release it, and that's it. We still had some problems with for North American people, because our server infrastructure before a couple of months ago was mainly located in Germany, and for some American users the line to Europe is really bad, so they had abysmal downloads. Like
the one instance where worlds are reversed.
that transatlantic line is terrible. And so they had like 205 kilobyte per second download speed, and that's not really fun. So, but luckily we actually got pretty recently, we were able to mirror the whole stuff on the 12.3R server, so 12 vegan ranges. That's also the servers you played on when you during the live stream you did. And since then, for the American half of our community, download speeds have been much better.
Okay. Biter Bob, now I'm kind of going to refer to you because I'm out of questions to ask. Do you have anything else you want to add onto this?
When will you add the slowpoke?
Oh God,
It's very important.
it's very important to Biter. Biter wants to know.
Do you even know what a slowpoke is? That's going to be the first question here.
I do.
Birdsing knows. Yeah, I'm actually not not familiar with this asset.
Okay, Andrew, imagine how Deviant designed an ultra-light mech. And then how Liao tried to copy it, but did literally every single stat worse. So it's a mech that has 2 tons of armor, a single medium laser, and goes the speed of an Irby.
Yeah, that will be released the same time the Irby will be released, which is when hell freezes over.
Oh, you upset a lot of
But
people.
I know, but to be they wouldn't. The Irby is a meme. We get that all. Everybody is like, oh, the Irby is so great because it has this AC20. But really, it would be absolutely terrible on 95% of our maps. They are
Yeah.
wide
I agree.
open space, and that thing is slow as hell. It has only that AC20 with limited range. There would be no fun one piloting this ever. So it's just wasted.
Oh no, but you see, the slowpoke would be even better because it's only got a single medium laser and it doesn't even have a torso, so you can't torso twist.
Yeah, no.
No.
So as I said,
yeah,
hell
no.
freezes over.
True.
All right, Bob, you've got anything else?
Oh wow. No, I don't actually. Most of my questions are actually answer the ones I put in there. The only other thing is, how can the community help in promoting more of MechWarrior Living Legends?
So for that, really just reaching out to other people and talking about it, even just playing it more often would be nice. But reaching out, talking about it, seeing like if any community figures would be willing to take part.
Okay. That's about it for me asking the questions there. Yeah, I think that's a computer fan.
I guess what we could talk about or what we could mention is what we are planning to do next, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, as we already said, the BA update is unfortunately mostly on the back burner. So what we are actually going to work on instead is aerospace updates again. There will be another pass on the whole flight system. We will actually, we have a new system in place for the ASFs that will include an air brake so that we can actually make
Yes.
that we can actually,
land. Oh no.
landing is actually not that hard anymore.
You say that.
It used to be way worse. You had to be really, before a certain patch, you almost always exploded when you tried to land. That was fixed a long time ago, thankfully. But yeah, that's the air brake will probably spice up the air-to-air game, although that's not that much of a focus because air-to-air is kind of iffy. Anyway, the fighter role is actually more meant to actually, hunt down bombers. So yeah, they're meant to take down the bombers, not to fight each other. But it hopefully adds a bit more to that, the air brake, and also the value changes that are planned. And yeah, and on the more important part, there will be a change to the how the VTOLs actually fly, because how the VTOLs fly, that's not necessarily physical possible. They have so much upward thrust that and it's a unique system, and it allows for some kind of exploitation is a hard word, but we call it ballooning. Basically, you are hanging in a spot and are angled downward, and the mech or the tank has pretty much no way to respond to this, and it angers a lot of people. So we really want to get rid of this and attempting to get a throttle system more in place that's like a battlefield helicopter, basically.
Okay.
So that that the VTOL is not as annoying to fight all, and that it actually is able to hover, but because right now it really isn't. You can't hover. There's always, you either go up or you go down, and that makes landing quite a chore. It's not easy to land a VTOL without causing it, without getting self-damage. It's a bit of a stressful process, and that will also help actually make that more viable. So yeah, the VTOL, and not only a model change, but because this model change also is supposed then to support the heavy VTOL that we are planning. Those have been in the game for quite a while. That's the one is the Anher, and the which one is the
It's the
other one?
Karnov.
Yeah, the Karnov, right. The Karnov and the Anher, one for IS, of course, and one for Clan. One heavy VTOL each, which will also be a mobile BA spawn point. And it will have automated turreted guns to actually, to fight stuff on the ground.
So I guess at that point, since we are closing in on 2 hours recording time, thank you guys for being here on the First Circuit podcast. And even more so, thank you guys for all the work you're putting into MechWarrior Living Legends. I'm gonna speak for everyone here on the First Circuit and everyone we've talked to so far and say MechWarrior Living Legends is an amazing game. And please go ahead and relay our thanks to your team. You're doing amazing work, and best of luck for all you're doing going forward.
Hold on, it's not amazing, it's fantastic. That's what it is. It's fantastic. I loved playing it. It was a lot of fun. I plan to play it a lot more, actually.
Yeah, we are very glad to hear that.
Yeah,
Please bolster the community any way you can. Be part of the game, stream the games. That's awesome. And yeah, as for me, it has been a pleasure to talk with you guys. Very happy to hear and to be here, and also very happy to return at another date.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Like, we plan to have more. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'm really glad you guys had us on, and I hope to come back again. And we will definitely relay your thanks to the team. It was a real pleasure to have you guys have you guys host us. It was really big.
Yeah, and the bird thing, man. Thank you actually for contacting me, because I mean, literally, we were just about to contact you guys, and we're like, yeah, maybe we should go contact these, go and contact them. And the bird thing goes, hey, what do you know? Hey, I'm here. It was awesome. Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I couldn't have contacted you actually without hearing from Pajama Boy. So really, thanks to him for letting me know.
Okay, definitely. I'll let me know that Pajama Boy and the Wolves is actually a pretty good project as well too, and plan to play that in the future as well.
Yes, we love those guys. They're awesome.
Yeah, definitely. The love of the game, which is the greatest thing about our community, and that's what you guys show in tenfold. Man, that's awesome. Thank you guys so much for everything you guys do.
Thank you.
All right.
It's our pleasure. I mean, as a dev, the only gratification you get out of a project like this is when you see stuff working and when people enjoy what you're doing. So this is great. I love it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, 100% agree. And just gonna say, we all enjoyed a whole lot. And with that, I'm gonna wrap up the episode if you guys don't have anything else to add. Okay. Thank you very much for listening in on the First Circuit Podcast, episode 114. Today, we've been talking about MechWarrior Living Legends featuring special guests, Birdfing.
Hi.
Yeah, at this point, we can just say goodbye. And Andrew.
Goodbye.
And we've also had our usual hosts, Spider,
Lark,
Old Bub,
Larg,
and myself, Andrew Sari. Thanks again for listening, and have an amazing day. Bye-bye.
See you guys later. Bye.